Okay, welcome everybody. This is Play Your Game with Alan Walker. I'm super excited to have author and real estate investor David Richter with us today. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, Alan. I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that don't know David, he wrote the book "Profit First for Real Estate Investing," and I wanted to have you on the show because I think, especially in this market cycle, I think a lot of us real estate investors are learning that we weren't as smart with our money as we could have been.
Yeah.
It's never too late to learn. So today is really about helping people understand. I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, David,
Yeah, sure.
and both in real estate, but then also like what drew you to Profit First and caused you
Yeah.
to write the book.
Okay. So that's a story. So it'll take a little bit. But at first, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad
We
in
got
college.
time.
So that was the big thing. A
Uh
good
huh.
friend handed me that book, and it was game over from there. So I got my
Hmm.
first house like after I read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, maybe another book, and like went out, bought my first house, like got into the real estate bug like right away.
Got that
Then
bug. Yep, I know
I
the
did.
feeling.
Then started working with a real estate investing company that was doing about 5 wholesale deals a month, and so they were already doing a good amount of volume. And then we
Hmm.
came in, and over my tenure there of like 5 years, we grew it to about 25 deals a month between
Wow.
wholesale, fix and flip, turnkey, lease options. So like anything you can think in real estate. I also bought some properties from the company, like, and put them in a portfolio. So it's like I got a lot of cool things there. Like I got to learn real estate from a small business level, not just the hustle grind, like of the first deal.
Yep.
And that it was like getting to see an actual operation. I got to sit in a lot of different seats there too, and get to actually be on the boots on the ground doing that type of stuff, from
Hmm.
transaction coordination to sales to marketing to the finance seat. So that's where I got to see a lot of that, a lot of cool stuff behind the scenes, doing a lot of volume. One of the last seats I sat in, though, was the finance seat. And
Hmm.
I learned there from the School of Hard Knocks. Even though I look like the numbers guy, that is not my background. I don't have a bookkeeping or like
It's
CPA
the
background.
glasses. It's the
It's
glasses
the
that does it.
glasses, right? Yeah, exactly. So, and the hair. It's, yeah, I got the total package for numbers. But here we go. That's where I sat in that seat. But then I was asking the CPA, like, where do all the transactions go? Like, how do I put them in QuickBooks? If I pull reports, what do they mean? Like, what do the numbers mean? Like, that's what I
Hmm.
really wanted to know. But once I figured it out, I was realizing, even though it sounds fun to do 25 deals a month, and that's like, oh, awesome, like we're doing a bunch of stuff, we're doing a bunch of properties, we were spending 26 worth out the door. So it's like that the math doesn't math there. So it's like, what in the
Yep.
world are we doing? Like, why did we grow so big? Why do we have so many people on the team? We're just basically feeding the cash eating monster that this business has become. So
Yep.
that was an eye-opening piece for me. But then what was interesting was I was also starting the mastermind circuit at that point too, because I had never been a part of a mastermind. This was still in my early 20s when all this
Hmm.
was going on, and I had never been to a mastermind before. So that company took me on a trip to a mastermind. I'm like, wow, just my eyes open of like there's other people that think like us, and like you can iron
Hmm.
sharpens iron, and like learning the different strategies and stuff. But then I also learned at these events too, like they would say, oh yeah, up on stage they're doing like 2 million or like 7 figures or whatever, and
Right.
then
Right.
they'd be crying at the bar because it's like, where did it all go? Like where's the money? So I'm like, wait a second. So it's not just us. It's not just us going through
Right.
this. There's a lot of people like that. That was kind of my first eye-opening experience, that even though you might be doing a lot and making a lot, doesn't mean you're keeping a lot and that you have the business that you always wanted. So that was like the
Right.
first eye-opening part to me. So through a series of events, I moved across the country, like sold a lot of the stuff that I had like in my portfolio, got some financial freedom, started working with an investor in Richmond, Virginia. And first thing I asked him was, show me your books. Like, I need to know your numbers. The numbers don't lie. And of course, like most investors, he didn't have a good real estate investing bookkeeper. So it was a mess. I couldn't really place the stuff. It's like, okay, we got to clean this up. So then we cleaned it up, got that clarity just around what he was making, spending, keeping. And then later on, like he was able, like a few months later, was able to refinance just a few properties in his portfolio that like he was super under leveraged on, but he didn't know where his money was. It was just all these doors that kept unlocking just by knowing the numbers inside of the business and the bigger strategic decisions he can make to get cash in the door and like be able to
Hmm.
make better decisions of what he wanted to do. And he came to me later on and said, this has been life changing. Like for me, my family, my kids, like now I know what I'm making, where I need to spend it, and how much I get to keep as well too. Like I get to see the big picture, and it's not just this foggy, like, I hope I'm making the right decision. I'm like,
Hmm.
oh man, this is powerful. So that's what took me on the path to profit first and down that road, because I said I want to start a company. Like I want to start a company. If
Hmm.
there's so many people that are in this boat that are just lacking that clarity and it's causing them to not keep the money, I wanted to help give them that clarity. So that's when I had a mentor of mine that I reached out to say, I'm thinking of starting a business that does this concept. What do you think? And he's like, you need to read Profit First by Mike McCallitz. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. So I read that book. I read it in one day, in one evening. I listened to the full audiobook like on 2x, took 10 pages of notes, and said, this is a great framework for the entrepreneur. It speaks to me as a simple system that solves the cash flow management issue of the business that everyone goes through. So I'm like, man, this is powerful. So then I set it up in my business when I first start. Then I started setting it up in real estate investing businesses too. And
Hmm.
that's where I saw the power of like just having where every dollar was going in your business, using a simple system like Profit First, a cash flow system. A lot of people's eyes were being opened, like that first guy in Virginia. And I'm like, boom, this is magic. So I went to Mike McCallitz about a year into helping people do that and said, Mike, I got to write the Profit First for Real Estate Investing book. What do you think? And he emailed me back and said, let's get a meeting. Had that meeting, and that's where he approved for me to write the book, underneath that brand of Profit First for Real Estate Investing, or Profit First. And then because my real estate background, I know there's nuances there that the general one didn't touch on, and like, how do you calculate some of this stuff? So that's how the story went. And now why I'm just trying to get that message out there, because a lot of people
Hmm.
think that more income is the answer. And then they
Yeah.
get to six figures, then 500,000, then seven figures, the $1 million
Hmm.
mark, and like their troubles grow by another zero.
It's the same problem.
Right?
Yeah. It's like
It's the
no matter
same
where you go,
problem,
there you
only
are.
bigger.
Yep.
Exactly. So and I love how Keith Cunningham puts it in his books. He says, if you scale cancer, the tumor grows. And that's where so
Hmm.
many people are in their business. They just think that scaling is always the answer, but
A
more is
hundred
not better.
percent.
Better is better. So that's where I just I wanted to get that message out, and that's what I'm doing now. But there's my journey over the last probably it's been 10 years in the real estate world, and then I've been doing this for almost 4 years. So about 3.5 on the Profit First circuit.
When I think too, that is that's such an important thing when it comes to real estate investing, because so many of us got into real estate because we know how to hustle. And we know how to make stuff
Yep.
happen. And that sometimes completely is void when it comes to looking at numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because we're just like
100%.
deal, deal, deal. Let's just get the deal. Let's get it done. Let's get more rentals. And I had actually read Profit First for my realtor business, and implemented that a couple of years back, and saw like the value in just starting to understand the basics around that, right? Because I think
Yep.
numbers, even though we all say we're numbers people in real estate, numbers still scare us.
Yeah.
Like we're numbers people when it comes to deals, but
Deals.
we're not
Yep.
always numbers people when it comes to our business, right? And I think that was
100%.
the eye-opening part. So I actually, just for viewers here, so I met David at a mastermind
Yep.
that we both attended, and it was all about the messaging that I took away too. Was it was all about scaling. It was all about being bigger. It's all about doing more deals. And I went down that path for about a year and a half and realized that for me, that is not it.
Right.
I started to understand, like, that's not the real estate investing business I want. Like I would prefer to be smaller and have like maybe bigger deals, but I don't need to have all the whiz bang things. But it was after I started looking at numbers and understanding what all that looked like that I was like, I don't know that this is worth it for me, right? Like
Right.
there's one of the things that I had another author, Dan Nicholson, that was on the podcast a while back, and he wrote the book Rigging the Game.
Yep.
And the way that he frames it is you want to get closer, not just more. And it
Right.
was like, what do you actually want? Like
Yep.
what is it that you want to be closer to? And so this really helped. I want to just take a small second and talk a little bit about the basic principle behind Profit First, which is this kind of formula that I just put on here. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where a lot of people get into business, and they are conditioned not to be business owners. So that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
big things thrown against us, is that we are the deal hustler, but we're
Yep.
not business owners yet. but then we feel bad if we don't have the savviness of a business owner. So, but the formula that he has up is the magic formula. But I want to tell you the formula
Mhm.
that screws people up. It's
What's
sales
that?
minus expenses equals profit, meaning I make a sale,
Right.
I pay
Right.
everyone else and their mother, and then
Yep.
hopefully at the end of the day, year, month, quarter, sometime I have
Sometime in the
profit.
future. Yeah.
Sometime in the future, it's some event that we're always
Yep.
looking forward in the future versus am I profitable today? And that's where
Yep.
so many people build their business on the hope and pray plan. I hope I make enough. I pray there's some left at the end of the year. Like that's the whole
Mhm.
premise of that their whole business is built on versus the formula that's down there. That's the magic formula. Like that's the profit first formula where you make sales minus profit equals expenses. I make a sale, I take my profit first and make sure that my business is healthy and that I'm healthy. And then the expenses are still there to grow the business. But now I've removed some of the ones that I need to make sure that the business will continue on. So that's where it's like, that's the magic formula. But I also feel too, we've heard this formula everywhere, like some version of it. This is like the mindset portion of profit first to me,
Mhm.
where you've got Rich Dad Poor Dad saying, pay yourself
I was
first.
just gonna
You've
bring that up.
got
I was just gonna bring
the
that up. Yeah, that's
You've got the
exactly what I
richest
took
man in
away from that.
Babylon. Like a
Yep.
portion of all I have is mine to keep. You've got the 7 habits of highly effective people put first things first. So like we've been taught this. If you're an entrepreneur and you start reading those books along the journey, like a lot of people do, then it's like you've heard this. What I liked about Profit First as an entrepreneur and what spoke to me was not just the mindset here. It was then there's a system behind it to
Yeah.
make the formula a reality, to make the pay
Mhm.
yourself first from Robert Kiyosaki not just words anymore. And like there's
Yep.
a system that I could pay myself first. So that's where it like took it another step further. So I love this formula. And then I love that Profit First takes it that next step and says, here's how you make this a habit
Yeah.
versus some event you want in the future.
Yeah, I think, success leaves clues. And I think this
Yeah,
is an
big
example of
time.
that, right? Like, as I've advanced in my investing career, as I've advanced just in general in business, I've realized like, people have figured this out, follow their directions. And
Yep.
I think that's, when you mentioned framework, that's exactly how I felt. It was like, oh, this is so easy once it's laid out. And I
Yes.
just have to make these accounts. I have to like allocate this way. Great. Okay. Let's try this.
Yep.
And it really like, once I started doing it, I was like, it's funny. I remember that like once I had 6 months of my compensation saved in my account,
Yeah.
the difference that I felt in my
Yep.
business, if a deal went south or if like, something didn't end up the way I wanted it to, or, like that was the beginning of that freedom you can feel in your business when you're just like, oh, I'm okay. Let's just roll. Let's focus on the business. Like I've got my like compensation taken care of. I mean, that's the power that I think many of us business owners don't ever feel
Oh
is
yeah.
like, I'm going to be okay.
Right.
No matter like what this crisis is I'm dealing with in this moment, like I'll be fine. So
Exactly.
that's pretty powerful.
That's a great point because then you don't have to worry about a 2008, 9, 10 crash happening and
Yep.
like the market going down if you're an investor or a realtor or wherever you're coming
Hmm.
from. That's where it's like
Yep.
now you have the money that's going to protect you during those times where a lot of people might be panicking. You can
Yep.
weather those storms. That was also a big motivation of starting this was like I had good friends, like the same guy I worked with in that real estate investing company had lost a big portfolio in 2008 and 9. I'm like, man,
Hmm.
I mean, if we would have had this system or if he would have had this system back then, like he could have foregone like losing all these properties. He had like a bunch of doors and then lost them. And it's like,
Hmm.
dang it. So that's where it's like, I
Yeah.
want to make sure people just have this simple system in their business to give them a fighting chance to know that, like, I love what you're
Yep.
saying there. Is it 6 months worth that's going to give you that peace of mind? Because then you don't have to worry about the money. It's like now a deal comes in and it's not like you need that deal. It's more like, is this a deal that's going to serve the purpose of the business? And like, I'm not
Right.
just grasping at straws that hopefully, that this deal just ekes it out, and like, hopefully I can keep it going because a lot of people go from their W-2 job into some sort of real estate investing and think that they're going like if you've ever played Cash Flow 101, Robert
Yep.
Kiyosaki's game, like the fun track. Like they think
Yep.
they're going from W-2 to the fun track inside of real estate, but they're in that little wheel. They're literally in the rat race going around
Yep.
just deal to deal. So they've traded W-2 paycheck to paycheck for now deal to deal living. And it's like, what the heck is happening? Now it's just a bigger
Yep.
hamster wheel. And it's like, we
Yep.
got to get off of that and we got to get to where, like you said, like, can we get 6 months of reserves for paying ourselves? Because no matter what happens, then I know that if every dollar went away of income, I could still sustain myself for 6 months, or like whatever that target is for you.
Yep. Yeah. And I think too, I mean, this is the best possible time for us to be talking about this because the real estate market has slowed down. I
Yeah.
often like joke that we've been Jerome Powelled into a housing recession
Nice.
because, that's really what's driving everything. And my heart goes out to the people that I see that had, 5 or 10 flips going on at a really high price point and the whole market shifted because
Yep.
I dealt with some of that last year. But they don't have the reserves because they never had a framework to use
Right.
to actually like put that in place. And so while we're not anywhere near where we were in 2008, 2009, it like in, I think any business, any industry, there's going to be cycles and we're on a down cycle right now. And that
Yeah.
is where like all of these accounts really start to make a difference because otherwise just like you were saying, you get like there's a lot of panic. I know a lot of real estate investors, realtors that are very panicked right now because like all of a sudden the good times are over and they have no clue like what they're going to do. And so I just like, and I lost money on flips last year. I mean, like who didn't, like that is like, that's like, it was a tough market shift, and so, but I didn't necessarily go into this like full blown, like I got to start making bad decisions, thinking they're good decisions for these short-term wins that aren't necessarily helping me get where I want to be.
And I love that your show is called Play Your Game because a lot of people think they're playing the real estate game. I don't care if you're on the agent side or the investing side, but you're not. You're playing the money game. That's what you're really playing. And since we're deal hustlers and we love the deal, we're going to forfeit our peace of mind to get that next deal under our belt. And even if it drains our own cash, then you get caught, with your pants down when the tide goes in, and it's like, oh, shoot, like then there's all my cash and then I can't sell these flips that I thought I was going to sell. And like you're up a creek without a paddle. And then you quickly realize, oh shoot, I wasn't in the real estate game. I needed to keep my cash on hand, even though I might be profitable. I talked to a guy a few months ago where he was like, I've got like 4 flips going on right now that are like really dragging me down, but I've got like 20 others on the board that are like millions of dollars of profit. But these 4 are killing me so bad on the cash that I'm thinking about declaring bankruptcy. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
It's like you've got millions of dollars in the pipeline, like, but these 4 ones are just draining him so bad that he was thinking he had to go to bankruptcy. Or like the lady, I talked to a lady literally today where she said, if I see money in my account, I have a bad habit of just spending it. Like I just see it and I want it out.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that's how most operators, most business owners and entrepreneurs operate. Like that's how, if we see it, we'll spend it. And that's where what Alan, you've mentioned several times, like the different accounts, Profit First, the system is based on like the envelope system, Dave Ramsey's made that super popular, or other, personal financial guru type people, where honestly, I love that whether you love them or hate those people, it's really about the financial laws and principles of giving every dollar a name. And that's where in your personal life, it helps you. But then in your business, it helps you even more because usually you're working with more zeros in your business. So it's like, it's more important to know where every dollar is going there. And then you set up specific accounts with different names for specific purposes, just like he has there, separate accounts for separate purposes. And then I talk about that in the book, and Mike talks about that in the book, the different accounts. We could go into that if you want to, Alan, but that's like, I want to give the general concept of what Profit
We'll let the
First
folks read the book.
Was. So that's fine.
Yeah, we'll let the folks
sounds
read the
good.
book.
But that's the concept of it, is setting up different accounts, because that's where it's giving every dollar a name in your business. The big concept of what am I making? Where am I spending it? And am I keeping any of it? And then you set up accounts around that framework so where's it going? Where's it been? And like, do I get to keep any of it? So there you go.
Well, one of the things that I like that Mike talked about in the book was that it's almost like allowing the human behavior of looking at an account balance and thinking that's how much money I have, like allowing you to do that because it's our natural tendency, but separating the accounts so that you're not confused. So it's not like, oh, I have $100,000 in the bank. It's like, well, I actually have like $20,000 sitting for taxes. I've got like, 15 sitting in reserves. So it's like, it's very easy to understand if you can make a purchase or make an expense. Because it's like, naturally, I just want to open my banking app and I just want to understand like what's there. And so like having these accounts allows me to still do that, without feeling like I don't know what's going on.
That's why when I talk in groups or like on podcasts or I speak out at places, and I kid about being the numbers guy, because I'm like, I get but I am the entrepreneur. So I understand like that you don't want to become this financial expert, this financial guru.
Yep.
And like most
Hmm.
people don't pull up their QuickBooks app every day, but they do pull up
Exactly.
their banking app every single
Yep.
day and look at the balances of
A
where am
hundred
I right
percent.
now? And oh, I need to spend money. Do I have money? And that is how they manage the entire business's cash.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
do I have money? Do I not? Do I need to feel worried? Do I not need to feel worried? And that's where I
Hmm.
teach a lot of people like if you have one big bank account, that is one of the biggest mistakes you're making financially in your business is having this one account like you were saying where there might be 100,000 in that account, but is that yours? Is that other people's? Like especially if you're an
Hmm.
investor, like is that other people's
Yep.
money or is it the IRS? Like is it your profit? Is it reserves? And if you just see 100K there, it's easy to spend 95K of it.
A
Like it's easy
hundred
to just
percent.
dip into it as much as you
Yep.
want. And that's where giving the discipline and what you really want the cash to do for you versus living on the edge all the time and then thinking
Hmm.
one day that you're going to just cash out and everything will be okay. Because if you never
Yep.
correct that cycle, when you do cash out, let's say everything works perfect, there is no market correction, there's nothing that happens, like everything is like walking on roses for you, and then you do cash out in the future, you still have the habit of spending everything. So now you have
Yep.
millions of dollars in your bank. Are you going to go out there and then do it at a higher level and then everything doesn't go perfect, and then you've
Right.
got something that goes
Yep.
upside down, but now it's a bigger game and it's like, oh shoot, I didn't learn the lesson at the place where I should have been at the beginning or like at a smaller level and now I'm at a bigger level and the
Hmm.
fall is harder. So it's like
Yeah.
that's really what this is about. And if you want to boil it down like to one simple concept, it is literally don't spend every dollar that you make. Like that is what it's about. Like as money
Right.
comes in, just don't spend every dollar as much as you want to as the entrepreneur. Have enough discipline to say there's other things, bigger strategic chess moves that I can make if I have money in these accounts, if I have reserves, I can do better things, whether that's use more other private money and like get bigger deposits from other people, or whether that's like, hey, having reserves because it was a hard time and I could keep my A players on the team, and my staff.
Yep.
It's like these are the types of things. Or I can pay myself when there's a horrible downturn and I can still be, I don't have to live on the edge. So it's
Hmm.
like those
Yep.
types of things that a lot of people don't think about when the hard times come. And that's why right now, especially like you were saying, in this type of market, it's easier for people to listen to this message because
Yeah.
it's like a lot of people are living on that
They're in
edge and they're
pain.
like, is
Yeah. They're in
is there
pain.
is
Yeah.
there any way out of it? Because I've been preaching this
Hmm.
for like 3 years, but like we have seen an uptick in clients and like people listening to the podcast, like all like getting the book and everything, because they're like,
Yep.
what do I do? What do I do
Yeah.
now? Because there's nothing, I don't have the cash or like the properties aren't closing as quickly. And it's like, that's where we're just trying to get you that foundation of being a healthy business and making sure you have good habits as the entrepreneur.
I think too, you mentioned richest man in Babylon, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact term, but like
Yeah.
in it, one of the lessons is like money comes to people that respect it.
Yes.
And like,
Yep.
so the
That's a big
more
one.
you understand how money works, the more money you'll be able to get because you're obeying the financial laws of the
Yep.
universe, and money will be attracted to that. Right. And I've
Big
definitely
time.
found that like it takes that initial discipline. One of the things that always makes me laugh is when I hear people, because I've taught Profit First at my brokerage. Like, I mean, I love
Good.
it. I think it's a great, plan. And I love it when people come up with really bad excuses not to try it. Like, it's really hard
Yeah.
to create all those bank accounts. I'm like, is it harder than
Is
you
it
losing sleep
really?
every month?
Right. Good grief.
And so and it's like, I will say this for anybody who's thinking about doing it, like Ally Bank is one that I use. I mean, I have a business account, but then I have all my other accounts sitting in Ally Bank, and all I do is just transfer money over there.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have to worry. And it's so easy to create multiple accounts. It's like, I literally had it done in 10 minutes.
Awesome.
And I just think it's so funny how people will like, I mean, I think what it comes down to is this: we're afraid of the numbers. So
Big
we
time.
don't want to look at the numbers. We want to just tell ourselves we're doing really well. And when we look at the numbers, we start to understand like, oh, my business isn't as healthy as I thought
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
so like that, all of that kind of fear and aversion starts to come up. And I think the only way to really blast through it is just do it.
Yes.
Like you can't think yourself through it. You've got to just like do it and start to see it for yourself. And once you see it, then you'll convince yourself of it because like the system works. right? You
Exactly.
just have to take that first step and say, I don't know everything about my finances. I bet that there's a better way. Maybe this is it. Let me try it, you know?
Yeah.
Because and sometimes it's funny to me because I think like, as real estate investors, we're almost all like quick starts. We're almost
Yes.
all like charge first. What is that? Like it's ready, aim, ready, fire, aim.
Ready, fire,
Like
aim.
that is
Yep.
who we are. And yet we're
100%.
so afraid to try something new when it comes to money.
Yep.
Right. Like we'll try something new marketing, new like market, new approach, whatever. But like, we're so hesitant to like, just like, you know, put our big boy pants on and actually look at these numbers.
Well, right.
It's crazy.
It is the root of the problem that now, after going through this so many times with so many people and then speaking and just hearing all the different stories from so many different avenues and so many different people
Mm-hmm.
in the real estate world, it is that toxic thinking of this next deal will solve all my problems, or more income will solve
Mm-hmm.
all the problems. And
Yep.
it's like, well, it's yes, I agree, if you have a system on the back end to catch the money, if you
Yep.
know what to do with it when it comes in, because that's also, Al, like, you know, like we hear okay, just open up Facebook, right, and go on
Mm-hmm.
Facebook and you see all the gurus, and a lot of them though can help. Like, I have a lot of good friends who have the courses and stuff and do that, and they teach people, here's how to get the deal, here's exactly what to say to the seller, like, and are
Yep.
helping people actually close deals. But then usually the training stops there. They get the dollar in the door, and then it's like, what do I do with it? Like, how
Yeah.
do I actually
Yep.
run the business? How do I actually make sure that I'm staying in business? So it's like 100%. Most people are the quick starts. Most people are the ready, fire, aim. And that's where a lot of people would rather just go do the deal than to sit down and say, okay, where am I financially? And I get that. A lot
Yep.
of us would rather bury our head in the sand. And as long as I haven't run out of money, then I'm okay.
Yep.
And that's where a lot of people get into trouble, because one day you wake up and you have run out of money and you're not okay. And you're like, what do I do now? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, now at that point, it's probably too late. So
Yeah.
it's like, this is where we have to have a good system way before then. And that's why I keep saying over and over, it appealed to me as the entrepreneur, because like I can set this system up. And like you said, out like with different banks and different online platforms, you can literally set up the bank accounts in like 10 minutes. Like Relay is another great bank that does this, and
Great.
Ally, and like people like, so there's different options that you have. So it's like that if that's your biggest comeback is like, I don't want to set up a bunch of bank accounts. It's like, Alan, like you said, like, would you rather lose sleep at night? Like, those are the two different options, because most people who don't know where their money's going, that's why the most reason why they lose sleep. And let's
Yep.
be honest too. What is one of the biggest reasons for divorce? Money
Money.
fights, right? Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there's so many.
Absolutely.
The reason I teach this now, it's not just about the dollars and cents. It's what the dollars and cents really unlock. It's what profit unlocks in your business. Profit unlocks your purpose. The
Yep.
purpose of your business, if you started a for-profit business, is to be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So you could
Yep.
say, hey, I've got this, you know, I love to give to charity, or like I want to go the time freedom, all that stuff that everyone wants. But the purpose of the business is to be profitable. So it funds your purpose.
Yeah.
So it's like helps you amplify that. And that's why I'm like, if you have these fights, if you do these things, I just want to knock the domino down and give you a system so you know where your money's going, so you don't have to have those money fights, so you can sleep better at night. So that way, at the end of the day, you could give more, you can go on vacation, you could do the things why you got into real estate investing, and what you thought
Mm-hmm.
was going to be this awesome thing that turned out to be a nightmare now can actually be that dream that you've always wanted. I interviewed a client on our podcast, on the Prop First REI podcast. He's a rough New Yorker, got the thick accent, is like cursing every other word, like just big time. Like, he's hilarious. And this is where on this podcast, this guy was saying, now that I've implemented it, like with the CFO and that type of stuff, like it is a dream come true now. Like, I'm paying myself what I need. I know where my money's going. I have these reserves. Like, I never thought I'd be able to pay myself like consistently like I am now. He told on the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, I used to stand in front of my employees and say, I'm not taking a paycheck for you. You know, like, and that was supposed to be motivating. And like, to
Right.
them,
Right.
they're all looking at Indeed at that same time. Like, should we, you know, like,
You
should
know,
we
like,
go somewhere
uh-oh,
else?
that
You know,
doesn't
like,
sound right.
So that's where it doesn't matter where you are in the stage of business too. That's another question that comes up all the time. Well, I'm just starting out, or I'm 1,000 deals into it. Like, is there
Mhm.
hope for me? And it's
Yeah.
like, well, on both ends of the spectrum, if you're just starting, start with good habits. So if you're on deal 0 or deal 1, like start to set the system up so that way you can set yourself up for success when you close those first deals. Or if you're at deal 1,000 and you're like, I am bleeding money left and right, there's no better time than to get a system to help that forces you to focus on the profitability of the company, because that profit ultimately unlocks why you started your business.
So David, tell us a little bit about Simple CFO and what the purpose of it is and kind of how you work with people.
Yeah. So most people have a bookkeeper and a CPA. And I understood this because I worked with people like that. And like, I understood also that not everyone's a great one, kind of like that first guy. And like, they didn't know real estate investing at all and screwed things up. So what I wanted to do right from the beginning was be a piece that most people never had, but always wanted, is that financial leader on the team saying, okay, I'm going to help you make sure that the books are in order so you get a P&L balance sheet and you feel like the business owner, and we can talk about the numbers and how this will make you more money and keep more in your pocket. So like that's one piece that the CFO does. We put an actual part-time CFO, chief financial officer, on the team because we work with small businesses, usually like, 5-10 million or under. So like if you're at least 200,000 in gross profit or above, that's where we start working with people, because if you're there, then we can actually come in and say, hey, we got to get the numbers right, but we're going to manage the bookkeeper so you don't have to, because even if you hire a bookkeeper, you're probably not going to manage them or get them the things that they need. So like, let's get that off your plate. Second thing we do is implement profit first. So we actually implement the system we're talking about, then hold you accountable to telling every dollar where to go. You close a deal, we're going to be right there with you saying, okay, here's where the money should go based on your goals, your personal goals for the business and where you want to go. Then we set it all up in a dashboard. We set up everything like to make sure that when we have consistent meetings, what do we need to focus on? Do we need to focus on you're not making enough, or where you're spending the money, or are you keeping enough of it? That's how the framework of our meetings go, from this dashboard of, hey, do you have cash on hand right now? Or like, are you in the middle of a bunch of projects and a lot of money's out the door? Do you have enough money in your accounts to be able to complete the projects? It's those types of things, and making sure that the investor knows where that's going. So that's where we wanted to come in, because a lot of people have bookkeepers, a lot of people have CPAs. The bookkeepers are doing the day-to-day transactions. The CPA is keeping you out of the orange jumpsuit and maybe helping you save on taxes. But that's where the CFO comes in as the business financial strategist with you, like another C-suite player, like your CEO, that's the CFO, to make sure you know where the dollars are going. So that's what Simple CFO is all about, because I wish I would have had that like in this other business when we first started doing all those 25 deals. Like, man, this would have been awesome to have, because we wouldn't have been bleeding money, and we would have had someone saying, hey, we got to like make these decisions in order to get back to where we need to be. So I just created something that I had wanted. And then now it's grown like crazy. We've got about 25 CFOs on the team at this point, and working with 120 120 people in the real estate world. And like, but this is why, because a lot of people, they know how to make the money and they know how to make it rain. We just help them know how to keep more of it and to make sure exactly where it's going. So that's what Simple CFO is all about, and got the website there. Or we actually updated our site to simplecfo.com as well too, because we bought that domain last year. I bought it from the guy that had it originally. So we actually have a shortened URL, which is even better, because
simplecfo.com.
Simplecfo.com. And Alan, I don't know if you're okay with this, but I actually set up a site for people that are listening to this. If they want the full ebook, Profit First for Real Estate Investing, it's simplecfo.com/Alan Walker. If you go there, you can download 2 forms. One is the Find Your Keep number, which we didn't even talk about that, but that would be its own podcast episode. Like I could go into that.
Well, I had it ready and queued up, but I agreed we kind of skipped over.
Yeah, we did skip over it, but
that's probably better.
There's a video about it too. So if you download it, I go through a video walkthrough of what that's about. So even that we didn't talk about it here. So that's the first thing, because you need to know what you need from your company. Don't base it on someone else, or like a dweeb that comes on that says he was doing 25 deals a month. Base it on what you need. Play your game. And then the second thing is the Profit First for Real Estate Investing ebook, the full thing. So that way you could go in and you're like, okay, what is he talking about? What are the accounts to set up? That gives you the full thing right there. And then if you want from there, you can schedule a call with our team if you want to. It's no obligation. The best thing we could do is either ping you to someone that actually knows real estate investing books or like something like that. So you're not just wasting money out the door, on someone that doesn't know what they're doing. So we'd love to help either way. But if you go there, you can get the book and get that Find Your Keep number for them too.
Well, that's wonderful, David. Thanks so much for your time today. I think that
Yeah,
this has
for
been
sure.
super useful. I cannot stress enough to people that are watching this or listening to this how important it is to think through these concepts. So I really loved his book. So I've got a link to it in the comments below. You can also get a hold of them at simplecfo.com/Alan Walker. Looks like they've given you a couple of things you can check out there. So yeah, again, David, thanks so much. Anything that you'd like to say before we end?
Make profit a habit in your
Nice.
business. So how
Mhm.
do you do that? Set up one account, call it profit, transfer 1%. Don't spend everything you make. Like start small if you need to. Just get into the rhythm and the system of keeping money. So make profit a habit in your business.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Alan.